For decades, Britain told its people that everything done in the name of science was for their protection. They promised that no more citizen would ever be used as a test subject without consent. But that was a lie. Hidden behind classified documents, erased names, and sealed medical files lies the story of a real experiment, where ordinary people were exposed to something they were never meant to survive. And when it went terribly wrong, the government didn't stop it, they buried it. In the years following World War II, Britain feared losing control, not to bombs or invasion, but to the unknown. The threat of chemical warfare had changed the rules of conflict forever, and the British intelligence believed the country was dangerously unprepared for another war. So, they started planning experiments, not simulations, not lab tests, but real human trials. The locations were remote, isolated military facilities scattered across the countryside. Places the public would never visit, where silence was easy to enforce. The volunteers were young soldiers, factory workers, and the ordinary men who were taught half-truths. They were promised a little extra money, a career boost, or were simply told it was perfectly safe. They signed papers they didn't fully understand, putting their trust in the system. The experiment involved exposure to potent chemical agents, supposedly in controlled, safe doses. The official goal was to study the long-term effects and develop better protective measures. But the controls failed. Almost immediately, subjects reported intense burning in their lungs. Their eyes swelled shut, and their skin began to blister beneath their clothing. Some collapsed right where they stood. And through it all, doctors observed quietly from the sidelines. Notices were taken, stopwatches were running. Medical intervention was deliberately delayed, not because help wasn't available, but because collecting data was deemed more valuable than a human life. Many participants never fully recovered from the ordeal. Some developed chronic respiratory failure that plagued them for the rest of their days. Others suffered severe neurological damage that only worsened over the decades. A few died from what were officially listed as unrelated causes. Their families were told nothing. Medical records were altered, death certificates simplified, and the files were classified under the blanket of national security. For years, anyone who dared to speak out about what happened was systematically dismissed. They were called unstable, confused, or outright liars. Their voices were silenced, and their suffering was ignored. It wasn't until decades later, when a handful of documents were quietly declassified, that fragments of the truth finally began to surface. Even then, the files were heavily redacted. Names were blacked out, dates were missing, and the entire sections had been removed. But what remained was enough to reveal the chilling pattern. This wasn't just an accident, it was policy. Even today, the full scope of these experiments remains unknown. How many people were really tested? How many suffered lifelong damage? And how many deaths were covered up? The British government has never issued an official apology for what happened. And for many of the victims, the truth came far too late, if it came at all. History remembers the great wars, the victories, and the famous leaders. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe for more hidden histories.